Welcome to Complete and Cast, the official podcast for Complete and Box video games. I'm your host, Spencer, and today in episode 21, which, by the way, will be uploaded before a couple other earlier episodes, so don't get confused out there in YouTube land. In episode 21, we're going to be talking Gamestop, the insider perspective with guest RJ. RJ, how you doing today?
I'm all right. It's been a busy day, but I'm glad I'm here.
Are you ready to talk some insider perspectives? I feel like we're like I'm Adam Schefter and you're what's his name, the Rap Report guy, Rapopolo or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
anyway,
I keep getting him and Michael Rappaport.
Yeah. Or
always funny.
I'm Pro Football Focus or whatever. Anyway, so recently, the reason we're doing this right now and getting it up before any other episodes that we have currently made is recently an article was published by Kotaku that, and I'm going to put this in quotations, exposed GameStop by, again, I'm going to put this in quotations, interviewing, because it was only by email, from what I could tell, a few employees. So the article looked at the circle of life and the lofty goals that are set for all GameStop employees and stores when dealing with certain sales numbers. Now, RJ actually, much more recently than I, in 2016, worked for GameStop, and it's not a secret at all that I worked there part-time during college from about 2007 to 2010 during summer and winter breaks. So we're hoping today to bring you, obviously we're both able to talk about this stuff because we're no longer there. This is not by any means, let's get this out of the way, meant to lambaste any employees. It's just to let people know how it is when you deal with, stuff like this. So, let me start off by saying that the hearing about the circle of life does not surprise me. That's been the GameStop staple for years.
Yeah, it's been something they really, really drive towards.
I mean, and in essence, it makes perfect sense. People buy new games.
Exactly. They have a good concept. It's just, the delivery could always be pinched.
Now, that I agree with. But the concept itself, where people buy new games, they trade them in. Those new games become used games for another customer to purchase, and the trade credit goes towards new games. It's simple, but it is a great business model, and I think anyone would agree that it's a fine. I mean, technically, any game store does that.
Yeah.
I mean,
anybody,
any game store needs to have trades to keep itself going.
It's one of those instances where if you can make money, they're going to try to make money, and that's where a lot of people don't understand that it is a business, and that's one thing that a lot of people get confused with. It's a business. They're there to make money, but in the same token, they kind of are looking out for you, just depending on what you're looking for.
And that's let's go off what I have originally, because that's a really good point. Now, the general meme, because we have the same meme because it's 2017,
yes.
is like took 1,000 games in the GameStop. They offered me $3.
Yeah.
And while there are times where you'll be like, man, why is GameStop's credit like that? I will say one thing for its credit, and for Complete in Box and for any other game store, is that there are places there to purchase your stuff. And for the most part, a place like GameStop is willing, you might not agree with the price, but it is willing to buy your stuff.
Exactly.
Now, think about this. Like, I have, some old clothes, right? What am I going to go to a clothes stop to, sell? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's very few things out there where it's like, I can take, this stuff, and a place with very little frills attached will buy it.
Yeah.
And yet, because this society we live in, people still kind of, complain about that. So I always found that to be interesting. It's like, it's fine. If you bring it into Complete in Box or GameStop or whatever, and you're not happy with the price for whatever reason, say the game's too cheap and we can't offer too much, that's fine. But at least you can't lambaste the fact that, someone is willing to take a look at it and,
exactly.
buy it, And
you're always going to have somebody that wants your stuff.
And the other thing about GameStop is they will buy it right away that second, and they're open many hours during the day.
Exactly. And even if it's broken, a lot of people will take it because you have people that'll fix it, or people that still want that stuff. It's all what people want. And if people still want it, people are willing to sell it.
And, it's just one of those things where it's so crazy that's something that people will still, complain about. Because you can look at the alternative. You're setting up a Craigslist thing where you have to meet up with someone and their schedule doesn't work with yours, or you're doing eBay selling and then they get the item and they go, this isn't what I wanted.
Exactly.
There's always headaches for it. So
it just seems like the easiest spot to go to, and people think that easiest is the best, and that's not always the case.
No, and that's not always the case. Now, sometimes there is, that, and this is a whole other side thing. Sometimes, a place like a GameStop or a CIB will give you more than another person will give you.
Yeah.
But the simple fact is, they're there, they exist, and you could literally drive down the street or into the city or whatever, and like get rid of stuff. You can't take your couch and be like, "Yo, couch stop, buy my stuff." You know, it's not a thing. It's a lot more work. So, that was an aside. Let's start the main piece by saying that GameStop didn't always used to be the, and I'll put kind of quotations here, joke that it has become, because we just spoke about like how people always joke about that stuff. In the early to mid 2000s, GameStop really did rule the roast and was, in general, a quality choice for video gaming, you know, when it was like Babbage's and, you know, Funcoland and all that stuff. Now, one of the questions we have to beg is, what in the heck happened where that is, GameStop is still a giant out there, but it is kind of a meme that people just, they might go to it and lambast the fact, but they like, it exists, you know, and you know, it's still up there.
And it's bigger name, so a lot of people are going like, hey, this is the only place I know. Instead of doing some actual research and looking at your other alternatives, they think this is the only place that people are going to want your stuff in. That's not completely true.
Right. And so we're going to use this episode to talk inner workings, and we're going to view at two different eras. Although our periods of working was only roughly 6 years apart, in video game standards, that's ancient. That's ancient history. It really, really is.
Yeah, because you're going gen to gen. That's an entire.
Oh my gosh, it's 1,000% different.
Yeah.
So let's start back when I started. I was hired in 2007 as a part-time game associate. A game associate is the lowest rung of the ladder. Essentially, you're an everyman who has no managerial powers, so you're just a worker. That being said, personally, as a GA, man, I had a blast. I loved it. I helped all the managers with their duties. You know, mostly helped the customers, process trades, did the quote unquote dirty work. I had a blast. Now,
it was fun. It was fun.
I would guess, RJ, that a GA's roles aren't too different at this point in time from what I just explained.
No, not necessarily. The GAs are more. It's more of the easy work that can be done. The one thing they cannot do is more higher value trades. Like, you can't do systems.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You can't do a system.
You cannot trade on systems. Because that's more of the SGA / ASM or store manager's job. Because it's more of a liability and a loss that they can take. They can take a way bigger loss on a system than they can for a disc.
I mean, I understand their reasoning, but even when I was there, at no point when I was there was that a thing. So that was not a thing ever when I was there just 6 years ago. And again, it's ancient history by all things. So if you're there, there's always a manager and likely a GA. So if you're a GA and you're there and someone has a system, you just go, manager, do this? Or does the manager like trust you to like test it out and whatever?
You can test it out as long as, because no GA, you can't be there by yourself.
Right. You always have a manager on.
They can't even leave the store without permission.
Right.
Which is, I understand why. It's to the point where, like I said, they will take a bigger loss on a system than they will a game. So they trust you to do controllers. They might do some headsets, but the systems themselves, if the manager is there, you'll have to wait for them and basically go get your manager, whatever they're doing. They'll come back and be like, hey, we're kind of busy at the moment. If they're not busy, they'll come over and do it, and they'll get the credit for everything.
I gotta say that I'm extremely surprised by that. I mean, I understand the reasoning, but I'm surprised by that because that just seems like it would be such a headache. Like, what if there are two systems being trading at the same time? Then the manager has to do both, and they just have to wait.
They have to wait. It was a pain, especially trying to explain to people like, hey, I can't do this. And I would have people come in and to the point where they'd be like, I want to see your manager. Okay, if they can't ring out a system for you, you really think that they can talk to you about this? It was to the point where you would have people leaving and complaining and cursing even outside the door just because they couldn't get their systems fixed.
And I don't think you should ever take it to the point where you're like yelling and cursing.
Exactly.
But I gotta say, if I would walk in and I would be like, I got the system to trade, and it would be like, it's gonna take like 15-20 minutes, and I'd be like, why, you're free? And I would be thrown back to be like, seriously? Like, they don't give you that right to do that?
Like, a lot of the times what they'll do, anybody that's higher up, like if a GA is trying to do a trade-in on a system and anybody above them is doing something else, they'll usually just switch tasks. Like, if let's say I was a GA at the moment and I had a couple times where I would have to do systems, I'd hand it off to whoever was above me and they'd give me their sale that they're doing. Like, either it was a game that they were selling or a console that they were selling.
Well, and you
can sell, you just can't trade.
I can totally get, again, like, why you guys would do that, but man, that seems like just another thing to complicate the job. Like, just
all it was.
So that's what we're going to be talking about, is all these complications, and this is what the Kotaku article, quote unquote, goes into. Because let me get this out of the way. That article is trash. It's not well written, and I don't mean that by I'm no journalist myself. I'm not saying, oh, there's a misplaced comma. I'm saying that it is a Facebook post of a clickbait article. All it does is bring up a question, and the question does need to be, it's a question that begs to be answered, and then it does absolutely nothing to it.
It could have been written way, way better.
And clearly, I could have done that article in literally a half hour. I could have messaged RJ and been like, "Hey, I got a question about this," and you'd been like, "Cool, an unnamed source, blah blah blah." So like, I'm really against a lot of video game journalism. There are a couple good companies out there. Polygon usually does a great job, but like Kotaku, man, like I was when someone in one of my employees sent it to me, and we were talking about it, and then we realized that it was becoming a thing that like more people that aren't involved with game stores were talking about it, and I was like, this is the article that brought it to life.
I feel like clickbait. It could have actually been a Facebook post, and they were just like, okay, quick, you have 20 minutes to write an article.
It could have literally been, I mean, so that's an aside, but that article, and you guys, all you have to do is just search Kotaku, GameStop Circle of Life, and it'll be the first thing that comes up.
90% of them are just GameStop exposed.
So it was a terrible article. So that's why I was like, RJ, we have to talk about this a little bit.
That's even being nice about it.
So like I said, one of the big things that we're talking about today is how tough it is for employees. And RJ brought up one that I didn't even know about, that system thing. Oh my god, I would be so annoyed if I was a GM there and I was like, someone has all this stuff and they have a system. Like, I would hate explaining that to someone. Like, it's gonna seem like I'm being lazy, but I literally can't do this.
Yep.
And it's like, I think a customer is in its right to be like, why?
Exactly. And it was the fact that they did, like I said, like you said, even they do have the right to be mad about it, and I would be mad too, but it's within your job duties and there's nothing you can do about it.
So if we're going to talk about how a store functions properly, I would say that having enough employees around is either number one or number 1A when it comes to how a store performs. I don't think anyone could really disagree with that. We're not talking rocket science here. How often are you in a place, Walmart's a great example, where you get annoyed by the fact that they're understaffed? It's just like, why? It's Sunday at noon. Why are there 4 lanes
47
open?
registers and 4 of them are open.
It just is what it is. So when I started, stores in general, and again, RJ, this is probably going to sound like I'm literally 80 years old talking about World War II here. So in general, the stores, at least during decently busy seasons, were giving a decent amount of hours. Hours, of course, we're talking about each week you're given an amount of hours to disperse between all the different employees and make a schedule. So there were at least, and this is going to probably blow your mind, at least 3 other GAs.
3.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you worked there were 3 other GAs. Oh my god,
yes. Absolutely. Not even a question. Not even a question. Because when I worked there, I never would have taken the job if they were like, you are working once a week for 4 hours. I just would have been like, dude, it's not worth my time. You know what I mean? Because I lived a half hour away at the time. I worked in Lancaster.
That's basically your gas to get to and from.
So my thing for our manager, who is an amazing person that I love, I was like, I need 7 to 8 hour shifts. Like, do not, unless it's an emergency, because I like you, do not schedule me for 3 hours, because I'm not going to do it. Yeah. I'm not going to spend all this time. So there were at least 3 other GAs, and this is an absolute fact, because I still remember most of these people and talk to them a lot, and we all probably got about 15 to 20 plus hours, a week. There were also 2 assistant managers and a store manager, all of which got nearly or more than 40 hours a week. Now, I can tell by just the way you're sitting there. Now, I haven't been there for a long time, RJ, but I'm going to guess that hours haven't been that plentiful in a long time. Do you have any particular stories?
Not even close. The managers themselves, they're getting 40. That's it right now.
Now, back in my day, managers were salaried and didn't count towards the hours. Is that still the case?
Yeah. And even then, they'll work outside of the hours. But that changed recently. They can't work more than 40 hours.
Managers, and store managers.
Yeah, you can't contact them outside of their hours involving work. Like, you can go meet up somewhere and have
drinks. Wow, I mean, absolutely. Every manager I ever knew, I'm not saying they're pulling 70 hours a week, but every manager I knew didn't care about the 40 hours. Yeah. It was a given that they were plus, because they were the store
40 hours was basically their minimum.
I wonder what the reason is for that.
It was the fact that they were working almost 60 hours and they were only getting paid for around 40. They weren't doing overtime.
So when it gets a little bit too crazy like that.
Yeah.
So an assistant manager, are they pulling 40?
As of right now, you're lucky if they're getting 15.
For an assistant manager?
For an ASM.
Why? I mean...
Exactly.
So An assistant manager, for any of them out there, is the second in command. It's got to be someone who is very competent at what they do, because there's going to be a lot of
not necessarily.
Okay, it's got to be. You want it to be someone who's competent at what they do, because they are, I mean, in charge. When they're there, they're likely going to be possibly even the only person working in the entire store, and we'll get into that later. But there's a lot of stuff they have to do, and you're saying that these people work maybe 2-3 days a week, like 5 hours at a time, kind of
that
thing?
even. It's one of those things where the manager, and I think now even the manager's hours count towards the total hours of the store.
Oh, wow.
They changed it right before I left. They changed it. The manager's hours, those 40 get taken out, and then you have, I want to say it's another 40 for the entire week.
So you get like 80 hours. Like
Around,
if
yeah,
we're
I
talking
think
a
so.
number like
Yeah.
70, 80 hours.
Yeah.
See, I remember, and
Somewhere
I'm
around
not going to go crazy here, but I remember always when I saw the schedule, it was always in the hundreds.
Yeah,
like,
that-
like
for
100,
the
110,
season,
120, whatever.
The holiday season, yeah.
But that's holiday season. Now, holiday
Yeah.
season is completely different. We're talking March.
Oh,
April.
well then, yeah, you're looking around there, but the 40, they, like I said, they change it, but the 40 goes into it now.
So you're open 7 days a week. You're open, let's say, 10 hours a day. I mean, that's not ridiculous to say. That's 70 hours, and you're given 80 hours. So that's
lucky, depending on your store volume.
So half of the time, like half of every one of two every single hours, there's only one person in the store, or is it more than that?
It depends on the day. I think it was Wednesdays. They may just schedule one or two people the entire day. And that was whoever was highest up would get the majority of the hours, and then they may have a GA in there, if that.
But it's pretty much like there might be swing shifts, but it's like you're the morning guy, then the person comes in as you're leaving, and you go, by the way, here's a million things to do, because and that's another thing. So I've been in GameStops plenty of times. You know, you're at a mall and you go, well, maybe I missed a new game coming out. You know, I don't want to say gotta keep on top of your competition, but sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't know that these pop figures were out. Let's see if we can get them, kind of thing. Whatever. So you're in there, and almost every time I can think of ever being in there. Now I will say I don't go in on Saturdays because I'm always working. It's always one person, always. And that person that person's answering every phone call, doing every trade, answering every question, just like.
And then it slows down the work environment, and it just makes for a bad day for the employee itself.
Not only that, but like I could not imagine being at CIB and having only one person. Like the minimum we have, and that's only on Wednesdays until the afternoon, is 2. Otherwise, we always have 3. And the only reason is because it's a Wednesday. You know, you can deal with 2 people for, a while. But we always have 3. Once in a while, even 4. And I could not imagine being, like, answering the phone and doing this and putting stuff away and answering, customers. And we're going to get into a little more of that later. But that is... I didn't want you to verify that, but the fact that you did, I'm like... Okay, so...
it's been interesting with the hours.
So, to me, not only does having one person working almost all the time seem really lame and tough, but it also seems kind of dangerous.
Very.
I mean, one person working, it's pretty easy for 2 people to come in, one person to distract the employee, and have another person go to town on stealing or causing havoc or whatever. I mean, you have one person there, and the worst case scenario happens and something bad happens. Who is in the back calling 911? Who is running out to get help? Like, it is like one person there at a retail job, like, to do everything.
Everything. And it's the fact that it's the business. At the end of the day, it's a business, and they care about the loss and the profit margins and everything. They want to protect their assets.
And that's crazy, because to protect their assets, you literally gotta spend money to make money. And that's just, like, bizarre to me. So... the Kotaku article, one of the good things it did was link to the Reddit r/GameStop, where it's a lot of employees talking and
it's their rant,
kind of groan zone and kind of enlightening. So I've seen on a lot of those threads that some stores only have one GA that gets 4 hours a week. I mean, can you verify this?
No. During the holiday season, you'll have maybe 5 GAs, and they're all working some decent hours. That's what entitled me. Well, not entitled me.
But let's talk non-holiday season, because that is a completely different.
Exactly, it's completely different. But that's what got me even in there. The fact that I was promised a certain amount of hours, and then as soon as the off season came, you got maybe a shift a week, if that.
Okay.
And you were looking at maybe 4 hours a week, if that. And so they have, I think, 3 GAs on is the total. And you got to divide those hours of each one, and it's the tier. It's the store manager gets the most, and then the ASMs, and then the SGAs, and the SGAs themselves are even lucky if they get 15 a week, if that.
Oh my god, I am like cringing hearing this. Like, at being a key holder of a retail job, to me, seems like it should be not a full-time necessarily by saying 40 plus with benefits and stuff like that, but it should be your job.
Exactly.
But it seems like these third keys and even assistant managers, like, you literally could not only work at GameStop. Like, there's no way you can be a normal human being working 15 hours a week. Like, it just
like
is what it is.
if you the first thing you do if you ever complain about your hours is like, all right, get another job. They will tell you get another job, and then if you end up getting another job and your hours there conflict with this one, it becomes a problem. Didn't you just tell me to get another job instead of pick up more hours?
So when I came up with this next question, I wasn't imagining you would say that about the managers. So this makes it even crazier. So when I think about having somebody come in for 4, 5, 7 hours a week, I think, what is even the point of having that person come in? So I think about Complete Box. I have a few somewhat part-timers. They're usually on 2 days a week, usually on the weekends. Although our staff really is only 5 people, we do have a couple guys that are like, I only want to work on weekends, and that's fine. Even for them coming in 2 full days a week, 9 hours a day. Dude, our scheduling is nice in that if you come in, unless you're like, oh, I gotta leave, and that's fine, you're there all day. So no one works more than 4 days.
That's beautiful.
But you're there all day. So people always joke like, whenever I come in, you're not there. It's because I'm there like 12.
Come in on my day.
I'm there 12 hours a day, 4 days a week, and obviously I'm doing stuff on the side and whatever.
Yeah.
But nobody works more than 4 days because it's like, why in that like in a perfect world, why in the hell do you want to work 5, 6 days at more hours when you can just get all your crap done in 4 days, right?
I would love that.
So that's different, but it is what it is. So like I said, even for them coming in 2 full days a week, I'll have new stuff to explain to them. They'll come in and I'll say, come in 15 minutes early because we got stuff to talk about, And I generally have them more do the grunt work, cleaning and disc buffing and, answering questions and stuff like that. I never have them on register, being that they're part-time.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even imagine running the store by myself. And I can't even imagine being like a key holder coming in and being like, okay, this is one of your 2 shifts in the week. By the way, this new game comes out tonight. There's a midnight release, and there's all these pre-orders, and you got to go through the pre-orders. And also, there's a new policy where we don't take iPads. I'm just making stuff up here. And just being like, what?
A lot of that actually sounds really accurate.
Right. And it's like, stuff happens. But if you're there like every other day or 4 or 5 times a week, you're like, okay, yeah, no, I heard about that. I was here yesterday, actually. But it's like, you could literally be there Monday and then Friday and be like, oh, in the last 4 days, like 7 games came out, and we're sold out of them, but we're expecting them back. And now we, by the way, iPhone 7s, blah, 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 we do this with them and whatever. And it's like, I can't even imagine doing that.
Yeah,
what is the point of even having the job at that point?
The worst time was one of the times that I ended up working a Monday, and then I was off the rest of the week. And then the following week, I didn't work until that Friday, Saturday. So it felt like I didn't even have a job at that point. It was ridiculous.
I mean, I cannot imagine that you would come in, and even if you were like, I'm in the zone, I want to help out, but it's like there's so much to digest that you're like, hey, where's the 360 games? Oh, in the 4 days I was off, they moved from there to there. And that stuff could easily happen.
It does.
Oh, do you have any literally every time someone would say, do you have any whatever, you would have to physically check, whereas it would be like, of course we had PS4s. I was here last night. I know for a fact we have them, but it would be like, let me check with my manager. Hey, and it's like, that's just annoying. And it's annoying for customers, and it makes the employees look bad when in reality they don't have time to be good.
Yeah, and it's when corporate will send stuff down and like, you have to do this now, and it changes the day after you leave. That is the worst. And it gets there the day that you're working, but it's not supposed to be done until the day after you leave.
This is an aside, but does GameStop still do those RSBs?
Yes.
Okay, let me explain this real quick. This is to the side. I hated this. So when I worked at the GameStop in the Park City Mall in the Sears wing, I'd like to think that me working there has helped me shape to what I want CIB to be. I'm such a stickler about I have the guys like literally every half hour, 15 minutes, like check the walls, make sure everything's looking nice, whatever. And like me and like the guys there and the manager, we all really respect each other. It's almost like the New England Patriots, actually. You know, where we are. No, anyway, but like right, we would make everything. Look good and everything. I actually forgot my original point on this. Unfortunately, I never do that. I mentioned the Patriots and I got off there.
Typical Patriots.
Typical Patriots on that. If I if I remember, RSPs, right? So we would like have great quality control everything and be like, the stuff in here is as good as we can get it because we can't control everything. These RSPs, essentially what they are, I forget what it stands for. Whatever.
I don't remember.
Essentially, the computer system will say, you have a ton of copies of Mario Brothers, and this store in Connecticut needs copies of Mario Brothers. Yep. So it technically makes sense where it's like, no one ever asked for Mario here, and for whatever reason, people need it in Connecticut. So they send you a list, you box it up, you send it over to them. When we would do it, it would be like, all the discs are on the side looking very nice, and all the stuff is all priced correctly, so you can just get it out there and whatever.
And the store receiving will always find a way to mess it up.
And when we would get us, FedEx would come in and we'd look at a box and we would be like, what in the heck is that? And it would be like, I know you're a New York guy, so forgive me on this, but I remember one particular one from the Bronx, New York, and it would just be like, you would look at it and you'd be like, what is this? Oh, it's the RSB, and it's like, it's missing half the games, and everything's broken. You know what I mean? And it's like, you already have all this work to do, and then you're like, great, I have this other work because you're supposed to send in these good copies of Call of Duty, and what we got was 7 copies of Barbie, because they just didn't care. They just threw stuff in a box, and they're like, who cares? No one's gonna care. So the fact that you still have to do those is like, I hated those. Because like, I just felt like every time we sent them out, they would go, like, it would be like on deaf ears. We send them to a place and they'd be like, what's this? And like mess it up.
It's funny, the entire time I was working there, I did one RSB. One. The rest of them I managed to put them on other people.
Away from. Oh, I hated those things.
Exactly, because I hated doing them. I would try to get something else to do when I needed to do those.
Imagine working there by we're going to stack as we go on here. Imagine working there by yourself. You're getting a bunch of phone calls because there's the Switch just went on pre-order, let's just say. Someone comes in with a rather large trade. And UPS guy comes rolling in, and guess what's there? An RSB. Oh, also you have an RSB to send out. But also, I think GameStop still does this. When you would come in, you would have 1 million price stickers there because it would print out price drops, right? Oh. So literally, but you're not able to come in early because they will like absolutely not let you come in early. Yep. So you're just sitting there with there's rolls of price stickers, and someone goes, why is this game $50? And you go, oh, actually it's 30 at price drop, but I didn't get a chance to put the sticker on it. Well, why not? Why not? So just imagine all that stuff, and then like the system manager comes in at 4 because you have to leave at 4 because you can't stay any longer, and you go, dude, I'm sorry, I didn't get anything done, and they go, thanks. And it's like they understand, but they're also like, dude, seriously, you know what I mean? And that could happen every day. So we got a little aside, but that's just, we're painting the picture here. Yeah. Now, before we get into the meat of the Kotaku article, that being the circle of life and the sales numbers you have to reach, let's first dive into something that was not around when I was working at GameStop: surveys on receipts. Anyone who's been in a GameStop in the last 5 years knows about this. So, has anyone out there ever taken these surveys? I actually have for a friend that used to work at GameStop, and man, is there a lot of questions. I mean, goodness, it must be literally 20 questions. Like, it takes 10 minutes to take the survey. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. So, have you taken one of these, RJ, or have you had someone take one for you?
Now, I don't mean to boast, but I'm going to because it's amazing. I was the leading employee when it came to surveys my entire time working there.
Ah, nice.
Because, and it's just in retail in general, I try to sell me more than the product, no matter what it is. And I'll usually have people coming in just for me. Now, we're not supposed to be bashing GameStop, but at the end of the day, I've taken somewhere between 5 and 15 customers from there just to come to my current job now to shop for games. And that's
because
they want to shop with me.
That's the mark of doing your job correctly.
Yeah. Now these surveys, they mean more than they're supposed to. Honestly, when it comes down to it.
Okay.
As an employee, you can't take them because then you could be boosting your own numbers.
Right. Okay.
Now you can't force them onto people, but you will get your ass chewed out if you don't have people taking them.
So, not only will you obviously get in trouble if the surveys say you do bad stuff, but if people don't take the surveys, you also get in trouble.
Yep.
So it's a double-edged sword. You have to convince these people to take time out of their day and take this rather long survey.
Well, that's one of the things that a lot of people misconstrue as well. It used to be, now this was over the holiday season as well, they brought it down to 5 questions.
Okay.
It was 5 questions for, I think, all of December. And then as soon as the new year hit, into 2016, they ended up bringing it back up.
And the general questions, it's stuff like, were you greeted?
Yeah.
Did they tell you about the trade-in promotions?
Yeah, and that's, oh my god, I hated the questions.
Did they tell you about upcoming reservations?
Yeah,
right?
and it would be stuff that you didn't even think about, because they came in, they know what they wanted, and they came in for a specific reason. Like, hey, I want a new 2DS. That's a whole other topic they're probably going to get into later, but it's the fact that they know what they want, they came in just for that, and you're not going to mention trades or an upcoming game if they have a 2DS. If they're buying a new 2DS, you're not going to mention Resident Evil coming out.
Why? What's the point?
Exactly. They're not going to buy it.
So this person could take the survey and they could love you.
Yep.
And unless you specifically tell them, dude, and they would have to be your friends to do this, just say yes to everything.
Exactly.
So they come in and I'm like, I like that RJ guy. Let me take this. And they're like, did he talk about trading promotions? And I'm like, well, no, but I didn't trade in anything. So you just click no, and you're very, oblivious and you're still being nice. And they go, RJ, why didn't you talk about trading promotions with this guy? Because he bought a 2DS and said he was in a hurry. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. That's a reason. We don't need reasons here, kind of thing. Yep. So apparently, in this one quick transaction, which by the way is usually you working, we're gonna keep adding on here, is you working by yourself, answering the phone, blah 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 blah, having multiple people in the start,
having to mention the survey after every transaction.
The employee is supposed to greet you, which is a given, unless of course you only have one employee working.
Still,
tell you about trade-in promotions, ask you about reserving something, answer any technical questions. The list goes on. Now, my big beef with this, and you mentioned it already, is the surveys are kind of important.
Yeah.
So I know at the least that the manager or district manager gets the weekly or monthly results. I don't know the details. Weekly. Okay.
Yeah.
So does anything happen if you are below a certain limit? Do they just chew you out? Can you get fired? Can you get reprimanded?
The entire time I was working there, I used to say that your job was in the customer's hands, because with GameStop, it legit is. You were on your heels every single day, walking on eggshells about how the customer controlled your job.
And we're going to go into that a little bit more later. Trust me on that.
The surveys, if you did, like I said, if you did get them, great. If you didn't, you'd probably get chewed out. But the surveys didn't cost you your job. Now, if the survey said that that you cussed them out or you were just a horrible employee, then you got written up.
And you only get a couple times written up.
It's the whole like 3 strike
thing. Okay.
But at the end of the day, if your manager knows what happened and if they were there during that survey or during that transaction, it doesn't. It means a lot, but it doesn't mean a lot. It's case by case.
And this is another case of a big company like GameStop, where I just look at it and go, man, they have all these good ideas that they don't implement correctly. Like, does a survey help you get a rough idea? Yeah. Like, if I look at RJ's and it's like, well, he only got 20 surveys for the entire month, but they all are really nice. And it's like, he's got to be a good employee. Whereas if you see someone that's like, this guy was kind of mean to me, you can get a rough idea and you go, dude, what's going on? We got to talk, kind of thing. But they're putting, like, so much into, like, the X's and O's of an anonymous survey.
And even then, with the transaction, it'll have a transaction number, so you'll know who it was from. And 90% of the time, you'll know who that was because
and like I'm just thinking, and I don't think I'm going out of bounds here. Somebody comes in, all right, and you're the only one working, and it's just like it's a boyfriend of an ex-girlfriend you had, and the girlfriend just effing hates you, and it's not your fault. Whatever, let's not build this too much, right? So the boyfriend is kind of like, I just don't like that RJ guy, whatever, and it's like. You don't mention the survey, but he goes, I heard about these survey things. Yeah, he was, like, they don't go crazy, but they're like, he wasn't very nice to me, whatever. And that is taken at its, like, word. It's an anonymous survey that is taken, like, 100%. Like, I doubt that the manager would be like, I don't believe this at all. Like, or the district manager, who's even further away from you, would go, I don't believe this. And that's just one particular case, but, sometimes I'll go to a place and they'll be like, take the survey, and, like, I'll get home later and I'll be like, who helped me? Like, I remember them being nice, but I can't remember a face, and they're taken, like, so seriously, and I don't take stock into putting this stuff so seriously. I even have, an example for Complaint Box for this one. So, About a year ago, on one of the places that you can give reviews or whatever, CIB received a scathing negative review. So I know this sounds, I know no one will believe me, but I take all this stuff like really seriously. So if something happens and I'm like, dang, that was my fault, like it like eats me up. Like it actually does. Like I go home and like I'm just kind of like in a funk, and I'm like, it's just one of those things where you can't, everybody loves Raymond, you can't like help anybody, but I'm like, man, I wish we could help everybody, kind of thing. So I looked into it. Now, it said stuff like the store was extremely cluttered and hard to get through, and how we knew nothing about games. Now, I, for one, for anyone who's been in CIB, am a huge stickler about having the store as maintained as humanly possible.
I have
like,
to give you props on that
literally,
as well.
like I said, like every 15 to 30 minutes, have my guys go through and make sure everything's looking nice. So there are times where it's busy, where it's not great, and if it's not great, I get a little, like, perturbed in myself, but I really, 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 really try for that. So I thought, like, now what in the heck? Like, when was he in here where there was, like, he was talking about how there was stuff everywhere, and I'm like, when has that ever happened?
I mean, there's stuff everywhere and it's neat.
Right. But he was talking about how, like, it was just all crazy and whatever, and it's like, I'm certain that, you know, that I've had a bad day where I've been a little negative to a customer. Everyone's like that. But, you know, and if a review comes in, with that. But this seemed really off. So my actual thoughts were, I don't think this person ever visited the store. And you know what? In about 5 minutes of internet sleuthing, aka Googling, that was pretty much the conclusion that I and my friends came to when we were like, who is this guy? I couldn't even remember seeing the person. All the rest of their reviews were for businesses that were relatively far away, which, by the way, he gave a 1-star review to a church. Which I don't care. I don't care if a church is literally like the church of Satan, whatever. It's like, you just don't review it. You know what I mean? Like, either give it a 5 stars or don't review it.
Hilarious.
Like, and it was like some weird reason why he gave a 1 star, and I was like, dude, just don't review a church. So at that point I was like, this is crazy.
The wine wasn't real wine.
And I noticed that they gave a direct competitor to us a glowing and loving 5-star review, and I was like, I'm really thinking here. So this story isn't to say that CIB deserves 5 stars or 1 stars or whatever, but it's to show you that it's pretty easy to just make stuff up on the internet. You know, there's that famous comic that's like, would someone just do that? Just lie on the internet? Like, yeah.
That's what the internet's for.
It took literally 5 minutes for me to figure out, like, okay, I see. And they, like, the exact opposite of what they said about how we were bad was what they said about the competitor being good. And I was like, come on. Like, it was clearly like, you know, whatever. So the fact that, you know, you guys are forced on stuff like that, I'm like,
I'm not there anymore.
Right. I'm sorry. The fact that you were, you know, blows my mind. So I find it pretty hard for you to hit all the check marks on the survey when you're the only one person working. I mean, how can you possibly be diligent on not wasting someone's time when you're making someone else wait while you're trying to hit survey marks? So you talk to that first person, you're like, I'm going to hit all these survey marks. And the person standing behind him is like, I hate this guy. He won't stop talking. I just want to buy my game. You know what I mean? So you have to figure out that time thing because, by the way, you're the only person working. So, and we're getting into the good stuff right here. I love these stories, by the way. So we've already established that even for retail locations where your average retail location skimps on hours, a Walmart or whatever, GameStop is giving out very few hours, but asking the world from employees via surveys and all that stuff. Yeah. So let's get into the meat of the article. The circle of life. RJ, when you were first hired, how was it preached to you?
It wasn't.
It wasn't. And should it have? I guess should it have been?
I think it should have. Well, from what I can't remember, it wasn't preached to me. It was the fact that you're coming in here, you're going to be working here, you know about games, just do your job. And then they're going to start bringing you in on their own policies. Because if they're not going to hire you, they're not going to tell you about the stuff that goes on in the workplace.
Well, I guess if you're just a seasonal, they're like, just do your job.
Yeah, because everybody gets hired. It's kind of a trial period. It's one of those seasonal GAs. You're going to be there for the holiday season, and if they want to keep you, they'll keep you.
At 4 hours a week.
At 4 hours a week, if that. And it was to the point where even seasonal, you were getting more hours than you would if you would have stayed, and that's a whole other story. The fact that when you first get hired there, they kind of sell you on the idea of working at GameStop. If you like video games, this is the place to work, and the more you work there, the more you figure out that it's.
And that's a really good point because, like, and I probably go into this later, but it's like, if you love video games, why wouldn't you want to work at a GameStop? I mean, you cannot, like, it's like...
Growing up, that's what I wanted to do. I'm not even gonna lie.
I love hardware. I want to work at a hardware store. And for the most part, it's like, it's not an illustrious job, but you might be a good time. You know what I mean? So, like, why would you not want to work at there? And that's how they get constant turnover. It's like, you want to leave? Dude, I don't care, because there's a million gamers out there that want to work here. And if we have to fire him in 3 months again, we don't care, because there's someone else, coming in there.
There's always somebody that plays video games that wants to work around them.
Exactly. So when we are talking about numbers, as the Circle of Life indicates, there are 4 categories. Number of pre-orders, number of power-up cards / the Game Informer subscriptions sold.
The pros.
The pros.
Huge
yeah, so I'll say the paid power-up cards.
Yes.
Used sales and trade-in totals. So when you were first brought in, how were the numbers explained to you?
They weren't really explained to me. It was the fact that you have goals that you want to reach every day, and they didn't really mean a lot because you were a GA. GA's numbers aren't what they really measure the store on. It's the ASMs, the SMs, and even sometimes the SGAs, depending on how long you've been in SGA. Now, if you just go from a GA to an SGA, your numbers, they start to matter. They're not as important as they would be if you were there, say, a year in that same position. In those 4, I think the most important would be your trade-ins. Oh, no, I'm lying. The used sales.
Used sales.
Used sales, it's because they make a lot more.
Right. And that's the case with any game store. We went over it a little bit before. You make very little. It's just like when you go to see a movie. When you go to see a movie the first week it's out, the movie theater makes almost nothing on the ticket sale, which is why they have popcorn.
Yeah.
So GameStop sells you new PS4s and they make almost nothing on it, which is why they have used PS4s. So it makes sense. So you're saying that is the most important one by far.
Used sales. I think it goes used sales, paid power-up cards, pre-orders, and then trade-ins. Because like the article said, they weren't really bashing it, but at the same time they were exposing the truths behind how important they actually were. The used sales is what everything is drived towards.
Now that's interesting because back in my day, there were 2, and it was pre-orders and subs, and we're gonna get to that a little later. I don't think I ever once ever looked at used sales because we didn't care. Like never once did a manager ever like they might go like because they confided in me and we were like really good friends. They'd be like, oh, we're doing really good on reserves and subs, but that was it.
They'll just say that now with customers in there. They'll tell you what the numbers are. Like you can walk in and be like, hey, how you guys doing today? How's business? And they'll tell you. That's like, ridiculous. That's not the manager, but if you're good friends with at least people that are working there or you're in there constantly, you're just like, how you guys doing today? Like, all right, we can do better.
Do you mean around other customers?
Yeah.
Or see, that's to the point of pure unprofessionalism.
Exactly.
Like,
I couldn't stand it. Like
I kind of hate the question when people ask like, how's business? Because you can't like that's one of those like jackknife questions where you're like really good and they're like, oh, Mr. Richie Rich, yeah. Or if you're like, not so good. Oh, you're gonna close down? So there's like a middle ground where it's like, hey, we stay busy,
store.
man.
It always has to do with a specific store.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, some people just don't care about their jobs. They're just there for the paycheck.
Right.
Now, the one that I worked at, it was incredible when it came to the employees. I think that when I was there, I liked working with GameStop more than I did for GameStop. I liked working with the people around me. Not necessarily the company itself, because I enjoyed the environment. The employees made the workplace fun.
And you want to have both do it. You don't want to have it like, this big corporate hierarchy really sucks, but I'm glad we're all in this together kind of thing.
It's really unfortunate.
It's like you're prisoners, and you're like, well, at least we're cool prisoners.
Yeah, you're the coolest people in the block. It's ridiculous. So I loved working at that GameStop. I just didn't enjoy working for GameStop.
Right.
And there's a difference.
And that's understandable based on the people. So if we're talking numbers, if a certain individual employee, and I'm guessing as the higher up it goes, it's more important, doesn't make the numbers, what happens?
That's a kind of a touchy subject because they'll find a way to blame it on the GAs.
Okay. So who finds a way to blame it on the GAs? The managers?
Whoever is down in numbers. Because they were like, oh, I gave everything to the GAs. Don't do that. The numbers don't matter. Aren't we all supposed to be doing good numbers? You need to... If you're going to be working as a store, then work as a store. Don't blame it on other people while you're doing bad.
And you've seen that happen like multiple times. Okay.
Multiple times. It was
well.
Let's
Talk about that. Is there ever any stealing of numbers where it's like someone's about to do something and you go, "Ah, I got it, bud." You know.
If now it necessarily is not a bad thing, because if you're good friends with some of the employees, like your other employees, if you know their numbers aren't bad and yours are amazing, you're gonna hand off a transaction. You're gonna help them out, that way they don't get in trouble or anything.
Right.
But I've had cases where other employees have stolen, not anything from the store, but they've stolen a transaction from me. And they know that I've been busting my ass for that transaction. And then they just come in whether I need to go do something, or they would ask me, like, if even a higher up might ask me to go do something else they need done. They swoop in, take that transaction. And
type in their initials and get going from there. It's
happened. But there's nothing you can do about it because they're your boss.
That's lame.
Yeah.
But have you ever seen anything a little bit farther than that? And again, without mentioning names or anything, I would say that's lame, but have you ever seen anything not right where you're like, that's not right, dude? Like when it comes to reaching numbers.
Pre-orders.
Okay.
You'll have one instance was a former employee. They had just gotten fired. Well, I don't know if they quit or got fired because I wasn't there when it happened. But from what I heard, they got fired. They came in, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, and canceled all their pre-orders.
Of course they would. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't they? If they got fired, it doesn't matter. Like, of course they would.
And they knew how important the numbers were. It was almost $200 in pre-orders.
Well, if you were the one, would you do that, or would you keep your pre-orders?
I don't know, because it all depends on, like, the circumstances. That's all it really was. If it was a bad experience for the person that got fired, then yeah, I would have did it. Just because you screwed me over, I'm going to screw you over. And not that I'm a vengeful person, but if you deserve it, you deserve it.
Well, I mean, if I'm fired from a place like that, like, even if I'm, like, not mad at anyone there, I'm also not going to give them my money. I'm not going to be like, well, now I'm going to buy all these games here. I would be like, okay, I'm just cutting ties. I'm not going to come in 10 more times for the rest of the year and pick up these games. It's like,
and it's the fact that they came in and still tried to pre-order stuff. They still shopped there, but they did that out of pure revenge. I kind of thought it was funny at first because I knew the person and I knew how they would react. And I was like, I knew this was going to happen. It was going to happen. And they were like, oh, no, you're good. Nothing's going to happen. They came in. They canceled all the pre-orders. A week later, they came in, start pre-ordering more stuff, buying stuff. And we were given the option to deny them service. So we did.
Okay. And like, okay, so that's when it gets a little dumb, because it's like, if you're gonna, I would just cut ties and be like, nothing against you guys, but I don't want to give GameStop any money.
Yeah,
that's silly to then
that's
come
kind
back
of what
in,
I did when I left.
Yeah, but like that's reasonable. But to come back in is where I would be like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
You know, you killed me that week, and it's not your fault. But like, don't come back in. You know what I mean?
It was around the time that No Man's Sky came out, and oh my god, that was one of the best times to work at GameStop, because when that game came out, well, even before that, you had to hype it up as the best game ever, and everybody remembers how much of a flop No Man's Sky was. So we had to explain to people why we hyped it up, why it was such a travesty.
Oh my god!
And it was one of those.
We didn't know, man. We didn't know.
It was one of those situations where we got to make fun of a game at our expense because it wasn't our fault.
So I read further in the Kotaku article, and this is the part that really got me, dude, where employees at GameStop would just straight up lie about having a new game in stock. You did mention that used sales is the most important.
Yeah.
So they would sell a used copy of the game, even if the customer wanted a new copy. Hi, do you have a new copy of this Final Fantasy 15? It's right behind you, and you go, no. Have you ever seen anything like that?
I've seen it happen, yes. What I would end up doing was, if we did have a new one, I'd try to sell the used as much as possible. And even if I could save them like maybe $5, $10 down the line, I would try to get that used out the door. Now, I wouldn't lie to the customer because I knew it's somehow come back to haunt me. Somehow.
That's the worry there, where it's like, dude, I got home and then I saw that it was on sale for $30 less new.
Like I said, you'll have people that just don't care about their jobs and they'll just do whatever for the paycheck. Those are the ones that'll sit there and lie to you straight up and not care at all.
So you're saying that it is
100%
it is a thing
true.
that happens.
It
Absolutely.
happens. Now, where we are now, I know a store that does that for a fact.
That they'll just always, unless you bring up the new,
unless you bring up and you see it somewhere in the store, they will tell you that it's not there.
Now, if you bring up the new one, now it is perfectly reasonable to go, hey, we also have this used for $5 less. Do they ever get pushy where they're like, what? Why don't you want the new? Why don't you want the used copy?
I've seen it happen. Yes.
Okay. And so can go into more detail.
I've seen it as both a customer and an employee, where they'll sit there and they say, well, why don't you want to say this? Why don't you want to say this? And it's because they're trying to push those numbers, the use
Of
numbers.
course, but doesn't that, I mean, even working there, you were like, had to be groaning, like, oh God, like, this is...
and I would get slack about it. I'd get chewed out about it because
you wouldn't be annoying about
yeah,
it.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing with me having the customers that now shop with me at where I work now. Because they left that environment, they're like, hey, I love this place now because you're working there. It's such a great experience to work with you.
And there's a point you can get to. Like, you can say, hey, do you want this used? You can make great points and say, well, with used games, if you don't like it, you can return it. It's not a big deal. We got a warranty. But if they still say no, dude, some people like new things, and that's fine.
That's why I am with my games.
Like, you're pushing... I mean, there's still a little bit of profit to be made on the new thing, so the fact that you're just pushing it so hard is like... That person's just going to be like, I'm not going to come back here again.
Exactly. We lost a lot of customers that way.
So you know for a fact that people... You've seen it like firsthand where people are just like, I'm not going to shop here anymore because this is just too annoying for me, kind of thing.
Word for word. They don't.
Oh, people will have like specifically said it.
Yeah, it's because
okay.
I know you guys have it. I'm tired of waiting, or they're sick of the experience. They don't like shopping at GameStop, and the GameStop is notorious for that.
Well, this is again to the side, but like it's pretty annoying to buy a game at GameStop. You want a new copy of Final Fantasy 15, but they have a used one, so they're going to go on and on about this. And maybe you don't have the card, and you don't really want a card because you buy one game a year, and it's Final Fantasy.
Yeah, that's
and
a
they just
whole
keep
other
going,
thing about
and they
pushing.
just keep going, and we'll get into that more later. But they just keep going on and on and on about it, and all this stuff. So like, you just want to buy a damn game, and they just keep mentioning stuff.
Exactly, and they like I said, it's a business. They want to push the numbers, but you're there, you know what you want, and the time that you are there and you don't know what you want, you just want to browse around, and you'll tell the employee that you're just there to browse. Okay, cool. Your managers will tell you, did you contact that person? Did you go talk to them? Go talk to them again.
It's like they just said that they're doing fine.
And GameStop stores aren't big. They're small, so you can stand behind a register all you want, and you can see the entire store. You see who's there, you see who you've already talked to, you see what they're doing. And if you have somebody that's shopping over there in the 360 section, you're not going to sit there and mention the new Crash Bandicoot coming out soon.
Right.
For the PS4, the remaster, which is going to be amazing. But you're not going to sit there and sell them something you know they're not going to be into.
Now, when we're talking pre-orders, which is another part of the circle of life, you mentioned cancellations, and cancellations are just a part of life. A game gets canceled itself, the person sells the system, whatever. No one likes it. One to work at GameStop, but it's a part of life.
Yep.
Did you yourself ever get just a little bit angry at like something, not at the person, but at the situation? Or have you ever seen another employee like go a little bit too much when it comes to like...
I've gotten mad at both.
Okay.
Because it was somebody that I managed to get a pre-order out of, and then maybe a week or two later they cancel it. Because it affects your numbers.
Right.
It affects whoever does the pre-order. Now you can have... Say you and I were working there at the same time. I could get a pre-order.
Right.
And they come in and they cancel it while you're working.
It affects you.
It affects you.
Oh, that's not how it used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be whoever did the cancellation, which is why when I knew I was going to another place to work, I was the proverbial punching bag, where I would literally be like, I would be there. And at the time, I had my own reasons for not super liking, just because they were getting to the point where they're at, and like someone would be like, I want to cancel 3 pre-orders, and I'd be like, I got this. And like my numbers at the end of the week would be like, and someone would be like, I want a pre-order, and I'd be like, oh dude, come over here, I want to show you. Like the manager, I'd be like, you got to do this, I don't know how to do it. And they're like, mine was like, how are you -20? And it's like, I don't know, man. You know what I mean? Like I would literally, they must have had a blast those like last month or couple of weeks, because I was like, dude, I do not care.
I'm not even gonna lie to you, I tanked my last 2 weeks.
I mean, it's a nice thing to do to the other employee. You're like, oh, you have a cancellation to do. I can help you with that. So when I took them, it just counted against me. That is crazy.
Yes.
That it's so they can go. Can they go to another GameStop store and it affects your numbers if they cancel?
No, because you can't.
Oh, that's right. It's
you have to transfer your pre-order to another store and then do that.
Gotcha.
But what you would have people do is you'd have people boost their numbers on purpose. I remember I had one person who intentionally did this, and it was the same person that ended up getting fired or quit, or that whole story earlier.
Right.
He came in, did his pre-orders. He made sure he was waiting for the one person to work, and then canceled a bunch of games. So he would purposely mess with people's numbers. I absolutely hated that. Like when you knew you worked hard for a pre-order, and then you'll even have randoms come in. Like you'll have a good day of pre-orders, and then you have somebody come in that ordered 3 games. I'm like, I need to cancel them all.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
And normally it's not a big deal, but especially when they focus so hard on this stuff. So we've been talking about how the customer, certain employees have been getting have been getting
I left it on before I left.
So we've had certain situations about employees getting a little bit nuts when it comes to this. Have you ever seen anything that goes a little bit step further, like say an employee signing someone up for something that they didn't ask for, like I'm going to give you this card, like sign you up for the card and not tell you about it.
Yeah, it happened in California, where a lot of employees, and I think even the store manager, got fired over. I think it might have been an entire store actually.
Oh wow.
They all got fired because they were signing people up for pro cards, or they were doing the GSPs, the GameStop protection, which is every time you shop there, the protection that guarantees you another game, the $3 or whatever.
Right.
Depending on how much the game is. They were discounting the GSPs. So they would give you the GSP and then discount it to 0 to boost their numbers for GSPs without telling the customer. So they'd be getting GSPs for free no matter what they bought.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah, that I couldn't believe that when I first heard it, but I was like, all right. It's smart, but it's dumb.
Yeah. So this is the part where we're gonna be really. I'm gonna be really old school here when we talk about expectations of numbers. Now, when I worked there, and for any old school GameStoppers out there, correct me if I am wrong, but I believe you were supposed to hit 5% of qualified transactions for getting people to sign up for the card, and 10% of qualified transactions for a pre-order. Qualified meaning if the person already had the card, it didn't count. And I also, and don't quote me on this, I also believe if they did not buy a used item, it also didn't work against you. So you wouldn't have, like, someone bought just a new Xbox 360, you wouldn't have to be like, buy this card for no reason, it costs $15. But if they got like a bunch of used games, it'd be like, okay, I gotta try to work my magic here. What are the number expectations nowadays?
I think they're 10 and 15. I think they
10 and 15. 10,
I think they went up.
10 for the card and 15 for the 15 for reserves.
Yeah.
Man,
I know they went up a lot. I remember 10 and 15 being a specific number, but I'm not particularly sure what it was for. I think it was for those two. When they come in and they get new stuff, it counts against you no matter what. Almost everything counts against you because they, like I said, it's a business. They want their money out of it. They want money. So if they can sell pre-owned, they're going to make the most money out of it.
Right.
So anything is going to count against you, no matter what it is.
So, I'm
lying. The one thing is, if they already have a card, then it's obviously not going to count.
Then that doesn't count.
That one, but I think that's the legit only thing it doesn't count.
Honestly, at 5 and 10%, I found that it was, for the most part, pretty fair. Like, you would just, over the course of the week, like, they were called, like, slam dunks. You know, someone bought, like, $130 of used games, and you're like, dude, this is a slam dunk. Dude, for $2 you get this card for a whole year, gives you 10% off. Buy one more game, you get it for free. Here's this magazine, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes they're slam dunks, and it just works out that way. But 10-15 seems like it would be, like, a little ridiculous. Now, I'm not familiar with what they ask for used and trade-ins. Is there a certain, like, dollar number, or
not
is there
really
a percentage?
They have a goal every day for what they need to do. Like,
okay.
It's a daily goal, then you have a weekly goal, and then that eventually becomes a monthly goal, and from there on. But now, me not being there for the past 6 months, I think, they may have even changed it again because they were changing things monthly.
Okay. So it would be like you would come in and it's like you have to sell 500 used today or whatever. It's like,
well, yeah, you'd have a daily goal and you'd have to try and hit it as much as possible. Now it's basically going off trends or what they would do either the week before or the week after. What they would project. And
is it based on a dollar amount or is it based on the amount of used items?
Both.
Okay, both.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you sold, like, it would break down to percentages when it came to amount, but then it would do dollar as well. You do maybe 35% of your transactions were used. That would be on your scorecard, more or less.
Right.
And then for the store itself would be the dollar amount. So,
and I mentioned this before, when we're talking the circle of life, I find personally that the reserves and the subscriptions thing makes sense. And to have a small amount on it, like a 5 or 10%, is like reasonable. It's like getting that subscription card is huge because it's like you get the magazine and it hypes up the games, and when you sign up for an email, it sends you all these like offers and whatever. It just makes sense. What I can't get my head around of is the other part of it, which is acting on used sales and especially trade-ins. So like, I kind of understand the whole trying to hit the numbers of used. The POS even tells you, like we mentioned before, if you have a used item in stock.
Yeah.
So if you scan FF15 in and the store has a used copy, it'll say something like, would the customer like a copy for 55 instead of 60? Something like that. So that, that makes it easy for that.
Well, not even that anymore. It just gives you the amount of each, and you have to do that. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't prompt you to do it or anything. It's up to the employee whether they want to mention it being used or not.
Okay.
So it's really on whoever's working. And their attitude that day. And that could affect your numbers as well, your attitude.
Oh my god, yeah. And like the people you're working with. So
yeah, that's, oh my god. I hated working with this one dude. So I would always have a bad day working with him, but still.
So again, this stuff all makes sense to me, but my thing is, why put so much pressure on the used? To me, it just really further angers the customers, and we went into that. So I do think giving the customer the option is great. Sometimes they might not know, and they go, "Oh yeah, I want to save some money. I'll take a used copy, whatever. It's $20 less." But some people like new things, and that's fine. So I read on these GameStop internet stories on the Reddit GameStop thing that employees would get pretty angry at customers for buying new stuff. A new PS4, a few new games, and honestly, from the way I was reading this, they hated it. Like, these employees, hated selling new stuff. And I don't know if these are just
the depends on the person, really.
If these are just the worst employees out there or whatever, but isn't that just bizarre?
It is.
So if you're if the manager comes in and they're like, how's it going? What's up? I just sold $1,000, stuff. I made $1,000 sale.
But how much did you sell pre-owned?
Right, but it's not just great, awesome job, man. It's just no pre-owned, seriously. You could get in trouble for it.
And that was the majority of the higher ups that would be mad about it. The GAs didn't really care because they were there, they were having fun, they were around video games.
Of course.
But like we were talking about earlier, the higher you get up, the more stressful it is. And it's even by store. You'll have GAs that love their job. You'll have SGAs that love their job.
What other... Anyone out there that's listening, what other job can you have where you're like, I sold several $100s of stuff? And, the response by your overarching manager would be like, seriously?
You're fine.
You're in trouble. It's like, dude, I sold $1,000 worth of stuff. Yeah, a PS4 Pro and a bunch of new games. We had all these games used. Oh, they didn't want them used.
Exactly. And it's like I said earlier, it's the fact that I didn't want it to be this way, but it felt like your job was always in the customer's hands working at GameStop. And
I think at some point I get into the meat of that, but you are absolutely correct on that. So let's hit the last part of the circle of life real quick. And this is the one that blows my mind. It's trade-in totals. How in the heck can you force that as a required number? What can you as an employee do to get people to bring in trades? The only thing I can think of is saying, "Hey, we take in trades," to literally every customer.
And their kids.
I realize that some customers might not know this, but it's 2017. GameStop's been around forever. Most people know that GameStop takes trades on stuff.
Yeah.
Even if I were to tell every customer that we take trades, that customer could bring in stuff to another employee. Not only that, but some GameStop stores are not conducive to taking trades. When I worked in the middle of the mall, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Convince these people to carry huge totes of stuff?
Yeah, nobody's gonna bring stuff to a mall.
through the Park City Mall, through the Sears wing, where you have to park literally 1,000 feet away.
And then
it's not conducive to
security.
trades.
Are you stealing that?
And I understand that the trading totals there would be less. What they would ask, but it's like, how can you even have that be a thing? It's impossible. There's some days at CIB we get, well, not anymore. There used to be days where we didn't get many trades. Now we get them all day, every day. Yeah. But it's like, what am I supposed to do? The only thing I can do is either accept the stuff or turn it away. I might mention someone, they'll be like, oh, I have all this old stuff laying around. Yeah, bring it in, great. But it's like, if I was like, oh, excuse me, we only did, $400 in trades a day. It's like, dude, you can't, some days it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Some days it's raining outside and people don't want to bring their stuff in.
That's the funny thing about this town. Every time it rains,
we get more trades every single time. And the thing that always bothers me, it's like, I have it in this box, but I didn't put a trash bag or anything over top.
And it's all wet, and then you test it, and it doesn't work.
Thank you for bringing it in. And this one time I was so mad. It was a really heavy rainstorm, and a guy brought a bunch of stuff in, and he was a really nice guy. And it was a box of Wii and GameCube stuff. The GameCube games were awesome. It was like Twilight Princess and Zelda and Mario and all games that are like, wow, we don't get copies of these much anymore. And there was a bunch of crappy Wii games. So, of course, the crappy Wii games were on the bottom, and the GameCube games were on the top. So the GameCube games, when they came in, were soaked, and we had to leave them, like, laying out all day, just because that's the nature of reality. Where it's just like, and we're picky on that stuff, where it's like, if the Wii stuff was on top, I'd be like, move this to the side, I don't want it, that's fine, it's not a big deal, we'll pay you good for these GameCube stuff. But it was like, the GameCube stuff's on top, so it's like, anyway. So that's separate for that, but... As much as I hate to say it, when I'm looking at the Kotaku article in general, it left me with a really weird taste in my mouth. And the article, this isn't about the article itself. So GameStop has long been known as a pretty bad place to work. I mean, for anyone who's ever been there or anyone who's in the know, it's just a thing. You can get fired for a whole mess of stuff, and this is what RJ was alluding to. Yeah. The pay is not great. And they require...
What were you getting paid? Tell me what you were getting paid.
I mean, I did minimum, dude.
What was minimum when you were working there?
Whatever minimum wage was. Like $7.50 or whatever.
Yeah, we started out $7.25 when I started working there.
Okay. So that must have been... I think minimum hasn't changed for a long time.
My current job now makes more than the store manager.
And like I said, normally I wouldn't have accepted it, but it was like a part-time thing I did while I was in school. So it's like...
And they were always promised, hey, you could get a higher
Oh, yeah, you could.
That whole 25 cents.
So... As I'm reading the article, the only thing I can think of, I know it's tough out there in the job market. I get it. Finding a job is tough. It is, especially in certain places of the country. But even a place like Walmart will treat you better. I have a friend who has not amazingly great work skills, but really cares, and recently started at Walmart and gets paid a lot more than minimum wage.
Yeah, I did when I worked there.
And it's like, I can't help but ask these anonymous GameStop employees who can't help but just send these emails to Kotaku about how terrible it is. If it's that bad, why not leave?
Exactly.
So RJ left.
You can find something better.
RJ left, and you got a new job pretty fast, and you love your job a million times more. So
I actually got offered the job because I worked at GameStop.
so it's like... I don't want to be that, like, it sounds like I'm that caricature of Mr. Moneybag standing there at the top going, well, if you hate it, just leave. You know what I mean? Where I don't understand,
a bunch more schmoes willing to pay.
Where I don't understand, like, reality. It's like, I feel like I'm there. Like, I feel like I am, where it's like, I get it. Like, maybe you get out of college and you can't find something in your, like, field and whatever. It is what it is. But any you can work at Walmart stocking shelves, and you will be making more. Any place you work,
Walmart's legit always hiring.
Any place you work, you can get fired for being bad. But there's a lot of things you can do at GameStop to get. And there's
a lot of things you can't do either.
So any job you have, you can get fired for swearing at a customer, smelling bad all the time, whatever, a million things, right? But they're like natural things where if you were like, why'd you get fired? Oh, I punched a customer. It'd be like, yeah, you would get fired.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things at GameStop that you can get fired for that you would be like, really? So this is no secret. Like, I don't keep this as like a secret or anything. The reason I originally left GameStop was it was around in 2010, and my manager, who was awesome, just an amazing boss. Every single person around him like worked harder because he was around, because he worked so hard. He was just he turned
that's essentially how it was up here.
He turned a store from a whatever 100,000 store to a whatever million, like literally doubled the money in like a couple years time.
Yeah.
Right. So ESRB sends out secret shoppers. And that's a thing where GameStop, for whatever reason, I don't know how much money they're receiving from ESRB to create this as a thing, but GameStop is really hardcore about the ESRB. You can't sell mature rated games to people who are under 17, whatever. And one day when he was busy working by himself, by the way, he got nabbed by a secret shopper buying Medal of Honor, the original one for Xbox 360, which really isn't that hardcore of a game. It's a mature rated game, but it is what it is. And with their no nonsense, no tolerance policy, got fired on the spot. I don't know if it was that day, but when they got the word back, no nonsense. He was there for 4 or 5 years. He literally we would get like awards sent in. Like, it would be like, you were #1 in the Philadelphia area, and we'd be like, holy crap, you know what I mean? Like, oh my god, like
those are always nice, and it was always the SMs that took credit for it. That
So,
was
oh
annoying.
well, yeah, well that's, and like I said, this guy would be the guy that would be like, dude, we did it, guys. Like we,
Yeah, I
anyway,
like those managers.
So,
It was
so,
the
so
Wiis.
he was amazing, and he literally, like, I came in one day to go to work, and they were in the back, and like people were crying, and I was like, oh, what's going on? And he was fired. It was like, go home, you're done. Like, you're not finishing the week, or not, whatever. And I was like, wow, if you can literally get fired for messing up one time, and again, this isn't like a, what'd you do? I stole $1,000. It was like, I sold one game to one person. I was like, I'm out. I'm done. That's when I started the, like, you want to cancel? Come over here. You know, anything kind of thing. You know, where I would take people's numbers. So there's so many things you can do to just get, like, GameStop employees, like, legitimately, like, fear for their job
every single
day. And it's,
like I said, it's
not
in
for
the
being a bad
customer's
employee,
hands.
but
Exactly.
literally every single day.
You can have an amazing batch of customers that literally shop there just for you. But if you do something that's not even in your control, somebody comes in, they do a bunch of cancels, they buy new instead of pre-owned, your job's on the line, and I hated it. But like I said, I loved working for that store.
Right, and that's you just got lucky that there were good people there. Otherwise, you would have been like, this is the worst experience in the entire world. And out of the 8,000 GameStop stores, I guarantee 90% of them are like not conducive, great environments where just everyone's like, I hate this. I have this one guy that's not great, but I can't fire him for whatever reason, or you know, whatever, or I can't find someone good to replace him. And it's just like, man, like, to every day just be like, hope I don't get fired today. You know, like my other friend, I'm not gonna mention names, but he you probably met him a couple times there, worked at GameStop for a while as a ASM, I think. And one time, for whatever reason, his drawer was off, not by much, not by hundreds, by like 40, 50 bucks.
That happens.
And it was like, that's it.
Yeah.
It was like, that's it, you're done. Get out of here. You know,
wow.
it's over kind of thing. And it's like, he's been here for like, he was there like as I started, and he was there like many years afterwards. And it's like, cool. Like, it's like, you can like have a write-up or be like, we need to take a look at this, or we need to, you know,
investigate it further.
We need to clamp down on this because we can't have this happening every day. But it's like, I cannot believe that like on the GameStop Reddit, like every single thing is about like, how do I not get fired?
It's legit. It's what happens every single day. Like, I did everything I'm supposed to, but
like the top question.
Everything wasn't alphabetized. Like, there was the 11 before the 12 in Madden's, and I almost got fired.
like every single like top question on those GameStop Reddits are like, how do I have this job and not get fired? It's like, I don't know, be a good employee. Yeah, well, that's not enough.
It's not.
It's like, it's not enough. So like, again, this whole episode wasn't to it wasn't to lambaste the employees. The major point that we're making is, oh my God, we've been talking about this for an hour, just about how tough it is.
Yeah, it's a difficult job, but if you have the right employees, it's a fun job.
Right.
Very fun.
And unfortunately, that is not always the case. I had it when I was there, and you had it when you were there, but I would work at other locations where I'm like,
I did that once.
This isn't as fun. Like, they would, nearing, not quite at the end, but nearing the end, when hours started to, in 2010, started to get a little bit crunched, they were like, because I was still a GI, I never became a manager or anything. They were like, we love you here, and you do a great job. I cannot give you more than 10 at this store, but what we're going to do is give you 10 at 4 stores in the area, and you would get up to your 40 or 30 or whatever it would be. And sometimes I would go to another store and I'd be like, this sucks. Like, this is like not the same thing, you know? And I could see that being the case, you know, with you.
It was funny because I went to another store. They did it one time. I outperformed everybody in the store, and I still got a complaint about it from the employees there.
What was the complaint?
That they hated working with me. Like, all right, I did, and it was funny that entire day nobody got surveys. I got 4 while I was there.
So like, if the whole thing is to get these numbers, it's like, I got numbers, I don't like it because you got numbers, cool. Yeah. And that's another thing that like we didn't even go into. Like, there could be like inherent jealousy. Like some like we would always joke because it wasn't as big of a deal. Like, we would have just like some guys that would like come in twice a week or 3 times a week and would just like get lucky. Like, they would walk in, they would like clock in, and then the first person's up, hey, how's it going? I'd like to pre-order 10 things, and we'd be like, dude, that guy.
And it was always
like,
the GAs that got lucky too. I hated it.
We wouldn't like be like, I hate that guy, but we would be like, after we were done, we would be like, you are the luckiest mother ever. And he'd be like, you know, they would joke,
and
like,
compared to their 4 hours a week, they looked like they did amazing.
And they would joke like, I'm not doing any more transactions, you know, and whatever. And like, it was whatever. But like, you're right. It's so serious now that if that happens, if a GA clocks in and it's like, hi, how's it going? Hey man, I'd like to pre-order a bunch of stuff. Like, that manager on duty could be like, dude, I hate you. Like, but what? I'm just here doing my job, and it's like, I hate you. Like, go away. Like, you're fired. Why? Because you stole my numbers.
One of the best things is when the GAs and SGAs outperform the ASMs and the SMs. That's always a gold conversation that's being had.
So, did you guys have weekly meetings, or did
not necessarily a meeting? It was whenever you got in on your shift, the either ASM or SM that was working there would talk to you about your progress either the day before or the week before. Usually on Sundays, you would look about how you did last week and that Saturday. And if it was throughout the week, they just do whatever happened the day before, and just how you're doing and numbers and stuff like that.
You know what's crazy? And like I said, I worked at a couple different stores, and I just don't remember. I remember we would look at our sales totals when we had time, or our whatever totals are, like pre-order totals. But I don't ever remember ever seeing the manager being like, "We got to crack down on this." Like, I don't ever remember seeing that.
That became a daily thing.
Like, they might be like, "Oh, last year we did X in sales, but that's because Madden came out, and Madden doesn't come out today." And we'd be like, "Okay, cool, whatever. Like, that's fine. Let's just do our thing." I swear to God, I don't ever remember seeing that where it's like, we got to discuss numbers.
Every day it was something. Always something. Whether like today's goal would be trade-ins. Okay, we do amazing on trade-ins. Tomorrow, okay, we did amazing on trade-ins yesterday, but our pre-orders needs work. So that'd be the next day's goal.
Did you guys ever have a day where it was like literally it was good enough for everything, where it was like we were amazing?
Yeah, and then it'd be something else that would happen.
Something. It's like it's literally always something new.
Well, we got RSBs to do. Great.
So, in general, the general feel was like it was no matter what you did, it was never good enough kind of thing.
Essentially, yeah. But again, it has to do with the people you're working with and how you experience your job.
And that's a really good point too. So, I mean, we're coming to the end right here. I hope we for you guys who never worked at a GameStop or even know anyone who worked at a GameStop, I hope we cleared up, and again, I don't expect the Kotaku article to go into this much, but cleared up a little bit of why it seemed weird, why it seemed like a weird article, and to go into it a little bit more. Now, before we end, do you have any particular just it doesn't even have to be about the circle of life, particular GameStop moments?
One thing I do want to say about GameStop is, like I said earlier, it's a fun place to work. If you are into video games, and you don't necessarily even have to know what you're talking about, you just enjoy video games in general. You're there, you enjoy your job, the employees make it the experience. Don't take it out on the employees because something happens there. Because I've had plenty of experiences where I'd gotten chewed out by customers or even managers or DMs, district managers, about something that has happened, and it's out of our control. GameStop is a company. At the end of the day, they're there to make money. No matter what, that's their main goal. So if you're going to go in there and you're having a bad experience, it's not always the employee's fault. Something could be happening within the store that day, or it's not, like I said, it's not always the employee's fault.
Or even that they're being put too much pressure on by
exactly,
corporate or whatever.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, the employees are there to do their job. They are there doing a job. They're there to make money as well. They're going to make sure your experience is as good as possible if they want to do their job.
Right. So
if they want to do their job.
So you were there much more recently than me. Do you think that GameStop is a business, and businesses technically, although I disagree, I'm less of a bottom line kind of guy, whereas I will sometimes and this, oh my god, if I talk to any business person about this, they would be like, you are the dumbest. Sometimes if a person will come in with a trade and they'll be like, it's my first time in, I love this place, I'll kind of bump up the trade a little bit more, just to be like, thank you for coming, we appreciate it, or someone will be like, I drove an hour away to check this place out, and I'll be like, here's an extra $5 on the trade, where a business person would be like, you are the dumbest mother effer in the world kind of thing.
And you and I kind of have the same, well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a work ethic, but it's more of an attitude towards customers. You enjoy the customers more than the business aspect.
For the most part. Yes, no, absolutely. And I'll never be you look at the numbers and whatever, but I'll never personally be a bottom line guy. But GameStop, if their goal is to reach the bottom line, do you think that having more hours, more employees on staff, there, and less focus on these numbers, do you think it would actually be conducive to making more money?
Possibly. You have to have the right employees.
Right, and I'm not saying that you need to go from 70 hours to 150, but bumping it up so you always have maybe two
Make them want to work there.
Where you maybe always have two people on. Now, I don't think they should ever go to a thing like a system where you man. It's eluding me. Where you get extra money for selling stuff. Oh, what's that?
Commission.
Commission. Yes. I don't think they should ever go to commission because that could get a little dicey.
I think they did at one point.
Did they?
GameStop was commissioned for
Really?
I want to say it was for the GSPs.
Okay.
Like I even pitched that right before I left that we should go to commission for GSPs because I was kicking so much ass. In GSPs. but kick in like an extra 25 cents for every GSP you do. You know how much? Like it would make you want to work more. It'd make you want to be
right.
there.
Right.
And
that's actually not a bad one because if you do full commission on like pre-orders and stuff, then you're talking to the point of someone being like, "I hate you," to like, "I want you out of here." You know, if it's like, you know.
A lot of the times working for GameStop, you're going to get free stuff. That's a given.
Wow.
With any place you work, you're going to get free stuff. Now, I don't know how CIB works.
We get because we're a small store, we get nothing cool from
but essentially you get like a bottle cap for free or something.
Once in a
cool.
while, our distributor, because we don't buy direct, our distributor will be like, because we're high up on their chain, they'll be like, I got these blah 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 standees. Do you want them? And I'll be like, that. Whatever. You know,
even
great,
that,
sure, great.
Working for a big business, you're gonna get stuff for free, and it's not necessarily. It's a perk, but it's not a perk. It's one of those ones where if you want it, sure, it's here for you as an employee. It's a benefit. And 90% of the time, it's something that's left over from a launch.
Right. Where it's just like, whoa, what's going to happen to this?
Exactly,
anyway?
It's going to get thrown away. So
I don't know.
Why not take it?
I know that very few places could run like CIB or like any other small business, but I do think if they just made it where it was like a little more lax, you know, kind of like just what I mean, GameStop was. I don't even have to look at the numbers to know GameStop was kicking butt back then in that time period, and you know there'll always be people that are like,
I think
it's because there's digital sales and all this kind of stuff, and that's always a worry, of course. But I think if they went back a little bit more to that, people would be less like. There's so many people online that'll be like, I'll never buy from GameStop again. I will go anywhere else. I will get from Amazon. I will get from Best Buy. I will whatever kind of thing. If they maybe relaxed a little, maybe they would get some people to be like, okay, cool, you know, whatever.
The best times to do it, and I even told people when I was working in GameStop, the best time to shop at GameStop is when they're doing their cash same as trade, and when they're doing like the 50% extra. That's one of the only reasons to ever go to GameStop.
Take
advantage of it.
So GameStop has the and this is no secret as well. GameStop has the trade-in thing. So sometimes if an item hasn't been traded in for a while, someone will call and they'll be like, "How much is this trading for?" And it takes 1 second to go to GameStop and Blue.
And even that, they have the app for that now.
Yeah.
That was another thing with working at. We'd hate when people would call in and be like, "How much is this trade in for?" Like, do you not have a smartphone?
Yeah, and it's so easy. So we would look at it real quick and be like, "Oh, okay." And the only time I was ever like, damn it, GameStop, for when it comes to trading prices was when they did the cash same as credit. I personally didn't like that. I know for everyone else it was
as
great.
A customer it was great. As
an
employee you hated it.
Yes. So it would be like,
because that's when you'd get the most trades.
I would look at it and I would be like, why is it 3DS $100 both ways? And it's like, I always found that to be silly because it's like, why would anyone? I like, even if I was gonna spend all the money in store, they'd be like, "Do you want cash or credit?" Oh, it's the same. I'll take cash.
Exactly.
Oh, I mean, I'll buy something here, but I'll take the damn cash.
Exactly.
It's like, so like sometimes.
Why would you not want credit?
Sometimes I would be like, dang it. And then when that would end, like, because it only ever went like a week or two, I'd be like, okay, thank God, we're back to like normal, where they're not like, just take our money.
As an employee,
just take
you
our money.
hated cash same as credit, but as a customer, you loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was great. So, like I said, guys, this has been this has been a nice conversation. If you do have any questions or anything at all, just post them below. I hope this has been a little bit enlightening. Like I said, the main thing about this, we mentioned it before, we'll mention it now, is not to harp on the employees. It's very tough for them. I do think that if they're having a super difficult time, that it's really one of those things where I think they should look for something else. I mean, if it's making your life that difficult, and it sometimes is, you got to look for something different, and it just kind of is what it is. But it's all about corporate. It's all about what you got to understand, you know, from this Circle of Life and this Kotaku article and all that stuff. It ain't easy. And it's and not the lamest thing. It's not easy or fun.
Yeah.
To work at a place that sells video games.
And like I said earlier, it's fun to work. It's fun to work at. It's just not fun to work for.
Yeah.
And I've had to explain. I've lost friends over working at GameStop, and it's been fellow employees that I've lost as friends. Don't ever do that. That's one thing I had to learn tough. They would sit there and defend GameStop to the T. I've never met anyone that does that. Yeah. Really? It was ugly. But at the same token, I see why they did it, because they were trying to suck up and move up and everything. But at the same time, don't lose friends over something that you're not going to be around for.
Especially in the long run. And again, and this is all corporations, but they don't really super care.
They don't at all.
And it's like they wouldn't defend you.
Exactly.
Like, it's not like they'd be like, "Here's a parting gift."
GameStop
It's
is the game of Monopoly that you don't want to lose.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you once again for listening. Thank you, RJ, for being here.
Not a problem.
It was a very good time. Maybe we'll do it again when the next crazy Kotaku article hits.
That's written in a Twitter.
In 140 characters or less.
They'll use 130. They don't got time for 140.
Thank you again, guys, for listening. Have a great one.